Hello friend, before starting the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like it. This may seem like a small step, but for us it is the key to success. Enjoy listening.
3 hearts, 1 path. When the morning mist rolled over the small village called King Edmund, the air was heavy with poverty. People had no choice but to tighten their belts further. My story, too, began at that moment when weariness had reached its limit, at the crossing of 3 lives. First, Roderic. His gaze was sharp, his heart hard as stone. Poverty, to him, was a mark of weakness. Mercy, a useless luxury. He believed only in strength and the clink of coins. Second, Elian. His hands bore the marks of labor, but his heart was full of tenderness. He felt other people's pain as his own. To him, a scrap of bread given to a beggar was worth more than all the gold one could win. And the third, me, Godrik. I stood between them, a quiet man as indistinct as my own shadow. Roderic's cruelty and Elian's mercy both felt foreign to me. I did not know what I was capable of or where I belonged in this world. Perhaps, like a river that only knows how to flow, I had learned to follow them. That day, Roderic burst inside in rage. "Enough," he said, his voice hard as metal. "We work only to survive. We do not live. This village is killing us." Elian hesitated, but Roderic spoke of an old legend the wizened, blind soothsayer had read aloud. 3 heroes, 1 treasure, 1 choice. Those words became a glimmer of hope for me too. Perhaps that journey would help me find myself. And so the 3 of us, 3 different hearts, but the same longing, set out toward the unknown. We left at night. Behind us, the poor village. In front of us, the dark woods and secretive mountains where our fate might be written. Did we love money? No. We longed for freedom, for dignity, for the simple breath of life. But did we know that sometimes the road to our desires will force us to leave a piece of our hearts behind? Our tale begins with that very question. The forest's dense, suffocating darkness trailed us for days. Hunger became my companion. Doubt lit a flame in Roderic's eyes. Even when Elian bandaged the paw of a fox we met and coaxed it to walk again, Roderic only grunted, "We're wasting time." I watched them both and wondered whether Elian's compassion or Roderic's realism was right. I still could not find an answer for myself. At last, we reached the place marked on the soothsayer's map. On the mountainside, a fissure that looked like a cave mouth, blocked with stones. Our hope was nearly spent when Roderic shouted, "Look!" From the place his finger pointed, a delicate silver glimmer seeped from beneath the earth, the first proof that the legend might be true. Roderic set to breaking the stones with a pickaxe in one hand and a feverish burning hunger in the other. Elian warned of danger. "It cannot be this easy, Roderic. Every treasure has a guardian." But Roderic did not listen. The more they dug, the more the glow intensified. Finally, the stone barrier shattered. We entered, and our breath stopped. This was not a small chamber. It was a vast, hand-carved cavern. In its center stood a colossal silver statue, like a monstrous feminine beast. Its eyes were 2 black sapphires, its mouth open as if in eternal moaning. Around the statue lay piles of plain silver coins. Roderic's eyes widened. He began stuffing coins into his bag like a robber. At last! At last! He kept repeating. But Elian stepped forward with care. At the statue's feet, he found an inscription carved into the stone. He who touches me will be my guardian. My light will reveal his heart. Elian tried to warn Roderic, but the latter was already lost in the glitter of gain. He stepped toward the statue and pressed his palm to its silver surface. At that moment, a light flickered from the statue's sapphire eyes. The cave seemed to breathe. The statue's endless moan turned into a weighty, meaningful sigh. Roderic staggered backwards in horror. What happened? Elian read the inscription aloud. My light will reveal his heart. He looked at Roderic. It has shown you, Roderic. You saw only coins. Not the warning. Roderic steadied himself, but fear swiftly hardened into anger. Nonsense! It's nothing more than a magical light, he shouted, and reached for more silver. This time, an unseen force pushed him back from the statue. The chamber trembled. Small stones began to fall from above. The treasure had found its guardian, and that guardian was Elian. The statue had recognized his nature, his mercy. Roderic cinched his bag shut. Run! He screamed, and fled as far as he could. Elian hesitated for a moment, looked once more at the statue. A quiet light shimmered in its sapphire eyes, then followed me. As we left the cave, I glanced back. The silver statue stood calmly in the dark, as if nothing had happened. Yet something had changed. Roderic had grown crueler. Elian had become more aware of his strength. As for me, for the first time I felt real fear. I did not know what my heart would reveal in that light. And this adventure was only beginning. The silver light we fled from clung to us like a memory. Before us stretched a coastal town called Port of Hope, its streets filthy and its citizens' eyes cunning. The coins in Roderic's bag were only a beginning for him. The greed in his eyes had become brighter than silver, heavier than gold. We took rooms in an inn. Roderic ordered the finest wine and drank it like one seeking to wash away all traces of past poverty. Now, he said, voice deliciously cunning, let's turn this silver into a much louder clatter. He entered into negotiations with a merchant named Lysander, a man who called himself pragmatic, but who everyone suspected of being sly. Lysander offered Roderic a job, the cargo of a ship from the Far East, full of luxury spices, but suffering customs problems. For Roderic, it was a chance to take wing, to buy the cargo cheaply and sell it illicitly. Risk? Of course there's risk, he said to us, but great profits don't come without great risk. Elian inwardly opposed the plan. He boarded the ship and saw the workers' harsh conditions. One of them, a young man named Tomas, had an injured foot and was in danger of being cast off. As he had done when he touched the statue, Elian immediately acted. He gave one of his small coins to buy medicine for Tomas and helped him. When Roderic learned of this, his rage exploded. "You're giving our fortune to street dogs," he shouted. "In this world, you either take or you get taken. There is no other way." Once again, I stood between them. Roderic's actions seemed decisive and strong. He acted as if he understood life. Elian's actions seemed pure and right. I did not yet know which path deserved continuation. I felt like a ship being dragged aimless towards some gathering storm. That evening, Lysander returned. His eyes gleamed with the silver Roderic had shown him. "Wait," he said, voice honey-sweet but full of poison. "I have a bigger plan for you. About gold. The king's own gold." The room chilled. This was a step too far. A betrayal. But the fire in Roderic's eyes awakened an excitement in me. Perhaps in such a dangerous undertaking I might finally discover myself. Elian stood. There was a resolve on his face I had never seen before. "No," he said, voice calm but firm. "That's enough. We are not smugglers, Roderic. We are not heavy-haul merchants. What do we want to be?" The question hung in the air. Roderic looked at Elian with loathing. I still did not know the answer. But I knew that Elian's refusal had pulled us off a path, and that at the end of that path, we would either stand together or be broken apart. Lysander's smile seemed to prey on our weakness. The ship's cargo waited in a dark warehouse at the docks, and we, the three of us, were as distant from each other as could be while standing in the same room. Where would the next step come from? From the tunnels beneath the port, or from one of our hearts? Elian's no in Lysander's room hung like a frozen blade. Roderic stepped toward him, venom in his gaze. "Who are you to stand against me?" he hissed. "I pulled that silver from the cave." Elian did not flinch. "And that silver has brought us only misery, Roderic." "Look," he said, indicating their surroundings. Lysander's sly smile, the shadows behind the curtains. "This is not the life we seek." This would be a richer graveyard. As always, I stood between them. But this time something changed. The peace in Elian's voice was more powerful than Roderic's shouting. And I no longer desired the stained path of profit. A small, persistent voice inside me said, "Stop." "Leave," Roderic said, voice cold as ice. "Both of you go. But remember, I will confront your weaknesses one day." He and Lysander turned their backs and continued their dark negotiation. In that moment, I understood that our paths were splitting. I saw the same sorrow in Elian's eyes. He looked at Roderic one last time, as if searching for the friend he once knew, then turned to me. "Godrik, come." Those two words were a choice for me. For the first time, I planted my foot somewhere. I did not follow Roderic. I left the dark room with Elian. In the narrow inn room, we sat with the last of our few silver coins. The air tasted of defeat. "What do we do now?" I asked, my voice dissolving into the space. Elian took a small, stained notebook from his pocket. "When I spoke to Tomas," he said, "he told me the true origin of the ship's cargo. It is not just spices. Inside are rare magical plants stolen from one of the king's traders. Lysander and his partners knew." He handed the notebook to me. Tomas's shaky handwriting detailed the cargo, the customs points, and Lysander's other illicit trades. This was power beyond physical force. Knowledge power. "Lysander thinks we are weak," Elian said, eyes burning with that familiar compassion. "But he has forgotten the power of conscience. We can deliver this ledger to the rightful owner. Let there be justice." This was no longer adventure. This was correction. It was a path completely different from the one Roderic had chosen. And this time, I had no hesitation in my heart. Yes, I thought, this might be what I have been seeking. That night we moved like two shadows through the darkest corners of the port, following the addresses Tomas gave us. At last we found a trader who grieved for his lost cargo, but seemed trustworthy. When Elian handed him the ledger, the surprise and gratitude on his face were more valuable than the greedy expression Roderic wore when staring at silver. When it was done, we stood in the street. Dawn was breaking. Elian looked at me. "You have changed, Godrik." "Really?" I asked. "Yes," he said with a smile. "Because at last, you chose." He was right. That night I had done more than follow Elian. I stood up for myself. I said no for myself. Not out of bravery, but because a faint light in my heart, however small, showed me the right way. It was no grand victory, but it was a beginning. Yet to think Lysander would accept this deceit would be naive. He was now our enemy. And Roderic, where was he? How would his wrath return to haunt us? The new day's dawn was a sign of a new danger. This time I did not want to flee. I awaited the next move. Lysander's fury arrived as quick and ruthless as expected. The next day, when we returned to the merchant's place, two broad-shouldered men with hard faces waited in the street. Their looks labeled us traitors. "Your master wishes to speak with you," one said, voice sharp as a blade. They led us to a damp, fishy-smelling warehouse beneath the docks. Lysander sat on a barrel, while Roderic stood beside him, slowly counting the silver coins Roderic had given him. Roderic's expression startled me. There was no fury now, only a cold, stone-like calm. "So," Lysander said without raising his head, "my unfaithful partners, you have not only ruined my business, you have embarrassed me before a rival." He counted the last coin and tossed it to Roderic. "You brought them to me. You will control them." Roderic stepped forward, his eyes fixed first on Elian, then on me. "They mean nothing to me now, Lysander. They are weak, but there is another way to pay your debt." A knot tightened in my chest. "Roderic," Elian said, voice full of bitter disappointment, "do you understand what you are doing?" "I understand perfectly," Roderic shouted. "Your foolish compassion put us in this situation. Now either you pay my debt to Lysander, or—" His gaze indicated the dark corner of the warehouse. There, chained and trembling with fright, stood Tomas. "He will pay the price of his labor. We will sell him as a slave." Elian turned pale. This was Roderic's lowest act. He wouldn't just ruin a plan. He would treat a person as a commodity. I could no longer be silent. The question that had gnawed at me finally found an answer. What was I for? It was time to find out. "No," I said. My voice rang in the warehouse like silver. Everyone looked at me. Surprised Elian, hostile Roderic, and intrigued Lysander. "What did you say?" Roderic hissed. "I said no," I repeated, more firmly. "No one will take another's place. We will leave here together." Roderic's face twisted into a cruel laugh. "And how do you plan to do that, Godrik? A lost lamb trying to find itself?" I looked him in the eye. I was no longer afraid, His power flowed from fear. Mine came from somewhere else. "Lysander," I said, turning to him. "You are a merchant. I offer you a trade." Lysander raised an eyebrow. "Interesting. What do you propose?" "Silence," I said. "Roderic didn't tell you where that silver came from, did he?" "The cave, the statue. I know its location. And there was more than silver there. Something ancient was carved into the stones. We found only part of the treasure. It was a total bluff." But my voice was so calm and confident that even Elian looked at me with surprise. Roderic flushed. "Liar! There was no map there." "Because you only saw the coins, Roderic," I replied, echoing Elian's words from the cave. "You saw nothing else." Greed glinted in Lysander's eyes. He was greedier than Roderic. "Continue," he whispered. "I will give you the map," I said. "In exchange, you free the three of us, me, Elian, and Tomas, and Roderic. He becomes your problem." A horrible silence fell. I, Godrik, the man who had always lurked in the shadows, had made the move that would change everything. I had found my strength. It was not sword or gold, but guile and courage. Lysander laughed with cruel amusement. "Roderic, if you found yourself a new partner, he seems smarter than you." Roderic glared at me with hatred, as if he could not believe I'd ever be capable of such a thing. But a crack had formed in his stony heart. My offer had worked, but we were not yet free of his curse. My bluff would hurl us into a new and more dangerous adventure. If the rest of the treasure existed, what trials lay ahead? Lysander's laugh echoed off the damp warehouse walls, a faint melody to counter Roderic's shock and the unease rising in my chest. I had gambled, and the bluff had paid off. "Agreed," Lysander said, glancing at Roderic with lingering malice. "Give me the map, and you're free." His men unlocked Tomas's chains. The boy's eyes filled with a hesitant gratitude where once there had been only fear. Roderic said nothing. He only stood and stared, eyes on me and Elian, as if a spear had been thrust into each of our hearts. That look was more terrifying than all his rage. He seemed determined to reclaim what he'd lost. Lysander led us from the warehouse. "Present the map now," he said, voice no longer playful, but dangerous. Elian came close and whispered, "Godrik, there was no map. What will we do?" I told him with my eyes to trust me. I had no plan beyond a single hope, to return to the cave and find some clue. It was a risk as good as death, but it was our only option. I told Lysander, "The map is hidden in the cave. I will take you there." A flicker of doubt crossed his face before greed reasserted itself. "Fine. But if you betray me..." His look fell on Thomas. He didn't need to finish the sentence. So we set out again. This time we were not free. We were captives of a trickster and his armed men. Roderic, meanwhile, was watched by one of Lysander's men as we moved. Only Elian's soft prayers broke the silence. I walked carrying the weight of my promise. Days later, we reached the cave mouth again. Stone still sealed it, but that familiar silver glow bled through from inside. "There," I said. Lysander signaled his men. They cleared the stones. "Enter," he ordered. Elian and I stepped inside. The statue still stood, its sapphire eyes gleaming as if it had awaited our return. but there was no map. "All right," Lysander called from the rear. "Where did you hide the map?" My heart leaped into my throat. I scanned the chamber desperately, and then noticed a detail I'd missed the first time. Beneath the statue's feet, under the dust, there was a faint pattern etched in thin silver lines on the stone. It was not a map as one would expect. It resembled stars and the needle of a compass. "There!" I shouted. "Engraved in the floor." But you can only see it when the statue shines. It was another bluff, but a subtler, more sincere one. Lysander scoffed. "That statue has never shone." "Because the man who touched it was the one who lit it," I said, gesturing to Roderic. "But this time, perhaps it will be different." I looked at Elian. "You touch it." Elian understood. He approached the statue quietly and placed his hands on its silver surface. The statue answered at once. A soft, silver light flowed from its sapphire eyes, illuminating the chamber and revealing the compass-like pattern in the floor. Lysander's breath caught. He stared at the pattern, whispering, "Perfect." They were so absorbed in studying the etchings that they forgot to guard Roderic. He seized the opportunity, sprinted into the cave's deeper darkness, and vanished. His escape was a warning. Lysander grew furious, but Roderic was gone. He turned his gaze to us. "What does this pattern mean? Where does it lead?" Elian and I exchanged looks. We did not know, but we knew this discovery had freed us from Lysander's grasp, at least for the moment. The etched compass was our salvo. Where would it guide us? What plans did Roderic hatch in the dark? We had taken one step forward, and that step had brought us closer to our fate. Lysander took us from the cave, but our captivity had changed into something more subtle and dangerous. He kept Tomas by his side while he measured every breath we took to learn the etching. By firelight at night, we studied the compass in the stone. It showed stars and a needle, but more astonishingly, it moved. The positions of the stars shifted as we traveled. It was a wondrous living guide. One night, Elian whispered, "Godrik, look." His finger pointed at the compass needle. It no longer pointed north. It pointed toward the peak known as the Star Longing. "It's taking us there," Lysander rejoiced. "Then we need wait no longer." With that, we set off for the mountain. The ascent was hard. The air grew thin and breathless, but the etching led us along a secret path carved into the rock, marked with ancient signs. Elian said it felt like a magical guide. I felt like it was a test. Finally, on a bend, we came to a vast platform at the mountain's belly. There, the pattern on the ground lay enlarged and exact. Above us, as if cut from the void itself, 3 bright stars were aligned exactly as on the etching. "From here?" Lysander shouted in frustration. "Where is the treasure?" "This is a dead end." Then a miracle happened. The pattern on the ground received a silver beam from the 3 stars above. The light was so brilliant that we all had to close our eyes. It flowed like liquid silver into the grooves of the etching, and then vanished. The design on the floor seemed to come alive. The stars moved. The light formed a compass that pointed toward the platform's edge, toward what looked like air. "This is madness," one of Lysander's men muttered. "There's nothing there." But a knowing light dawned on Elian's face. He approached the platform's edge and put out his hand as if touching an invisible wall, and his hand vanished into the air. He was drawn forward. Godrik, he called without looking back. It is testing our faith. I followed him. For a moment there was darkness, then light returned. But we were no longer on the same platform. We were suspended in the air, the platform floating. Below us floated stone tiles. Before us, above the clouds, a city of silver rivers, rainbow bridges, and gleaming marble rose into view. It was the legendary Heavenly Port. Lysander and his men followed, eyes wide in astonishment. Tomas stood with his mouth open. This was a wonder no map could promise. Lysander's voice trembled. Where is the treasure? Elian looked around. Perhaps the treasure is the whole city, Lysander. Perhaps this beauty itself is the treasure. Peace, gentleness, a sanctuary. But Lysander saw only gold. He abandoned restraint and charged into the city, his men close behind, their blades suddenly a strange stain on this brightness. We three, Elian, Tomas, and I, remained. Silence wrapped us as we watched. Elian looked at me. Did you know? He asked. He smiled. The night we betrayed ourselves, I dreamed this place. My heart told me to believe. At that moment I understood. The true treasure was not coins. It was Elian's mercy, my act of choosing, and the miracle unfolding before us. What Roderic sought, and what Lysander intended to plunder, had no meaning here. But they were here as well. Each of them would try to mar this beauty with their passions. We had to stop them. For this city, like the map, was a refuge only for those pure of heart. Our trial was not over. The heavenly port stretched before us like a dream made real. Floating stone slabs led to rainbow-hued marble bridges. Rivers ran not with water, but with music. The air itself seemed to breathe, and with each breath peace poured into our hearts. Tomas's fear dissolved into simple wonder. Elian's eyes shone as if he had finally found his eternal home. "Do you see, Godrik?" he said, voice trembling. Our hearts led us true. I only nodded. The poverty of our village, Roderic's rage, Lysander's cunning, all of it felt like a distant nightmare in this place of peace. Perhaps this truly was the treasure, but the peace did not last. Lysander and his men, driven by appetite, struck at this beauty. They smashed the doors of the nearest buildings. Inside they found no gold, no trinkets. The homes were empty, filled only with calm and quiet. "What kind of treasure is this?" Lysander cried, hurling a marble statue to the ground. The statue did not shatter. Instead, a small crack formed, and from that crack, blood began to seep. We froze in cold horror. In that moment, the city changed. The rainbow hues faded to gray and brown. The 3 stars above blazed an angry red. Distant moans rose like a wind. The city seemed alive, and it reacted to our intents. What was that?" Tomas whispered. Elian stepped toward the statue's weeping crack. "This city, it is alive, Godrik. It feels. Lysander has wounded it. Lysander was frightened, but more than frightened, furious. This is sorcery, evil sorcery. We must find the treasure and leave." He and his men pressed deeper into the now twisted streets. I did not want to follow, but I knew if we did not stop them, this wonder would be destroyed. We pursued. The streets grew narrower and darker. On the scorched walls were the silhouettes of human shapes. The fate of those who tried to plunder this city before had been carved into the stone. Finally, we found them before a huge tower, its gates smashed. A pale golden light glimmered from within. "There!" Lysander shouted. "The treasure is in there!" They entered. We followed. Inside, the chamber was empty save for a rotating crystal suspended in the air. It was the source of that cold, golden light. Yet around it there were no coins, no gems, nothing. "What is it?" one of Lysander's men hissed. "Some contraption." Lysander, desperate, looked around and then fixed his gaze on the crystal. "This will do." He drew his sword and stepped forward. "No!" Elian cried. "Do not touch it!" "It is the heart of the city." But it was too late. Lysander's sword struck the crystal. The world exploded. The golden light became a blinding white glare that stunned us all. There was no sound like an explosion, only an absolute silence that washed over everything. I felt as if I were flying through void. Then I found myself on hard, cold stone. The tower was gone. Around us, only gray rubble and shards of the broken rainbow remained. The heavenly port was dead. Lysander and his men lay stunned. The crystal was shattered. Its fragments lay scattered, dull and colorless. Elian rose, his face pale. He looked at the ruined beauty around him. Anger unlike anything I had seen in him flared. "Do you see?" he said, voice calm but terrible. "Do you see what you have done?" Lysander pulled himself together and lowered his head. There was no anger now, only deep sorrow. He said nothing, but the heaviest weight was in my heart. We had come to protect this beauty, yet it was our presence, the map we had brought, that enabled Lysander to enter and destroy it. From the ruins, a shadow rose. It was Roderic. He had witnessed everything. There was no surprise or sadness on his face, only a cold satisfaction. "Regrettable," he said, voice like ice. "It seems your heart's guidance did not save anything. It destroyed instead." He looked around. "Now it is my turn. From these ruins, I will make my treasure." We had not arrived to plunder, but now we faced a greater danger. Roderic intended to build his dark dominion from the wreckage. We were the only obstacle standing in his way. Roderic's voice split the silence of the ruined city. His words carried a colder hush. He stood over the wreckage like a black king. In his eyes there was no fury now, only iron resolve. He had decided to write his own fate. "Roderic," Elian said, voice heavy with pain and fatigue. "Stop. Look around. Is this what you wanted? This ruin?" Roderic tilted his head slowly. "Ruin clears the way for a new beginning, Elian. You never understood that. You remained bound to the past." His eyes turned to me. "And you, Godrik, you finally became the hero. What did you gain?" "A pile of stones." I remained silent. Anger surged in me so strongly that words could not contain it. He had destroyed beauty. He had slain our hope. Lysander and his men were still in shock. Their lust for treasure had led them to this catastrophe. Now Roderic stood over them. "You," he said, pointing, "still have a use. Serve me, and perhaps you will have a place in this new world." The flame in Lysander's eyes died out. He bowed his head, accepting defeat. But one of his men, driven by fear and rage, screamed, "No!" and lunged at Roderic with his sword. It was a grave mistake. Roderic did not move. He simply raised his hand. A shard of the broken crystal rose like a needle and flew into that man's throat. He fell without a sound. A complete hush followed. Roderic acted as if nothing had happened. "Any more objections?" he asked. No one moved. Fear had frozen us all. Even among the ruins, Roderic was the stronger force. He had learned dark sorcery here. He looked at Elian and me. "Now you are my last obstacles. I give you a choice. Join me as servants in this wreckage, or..." His gaze fell on Tomas. "You will paint these stones with that boy's blood." Elian's expression shifted. He looked from Roderic to the ruined city, then to Tomas. The anger in his eyes faded and was replaced by a deep, calm sorrow. He no longer resisted. He had understood. "No, Roderic," he said, voice clear and steady as stone. "We will not be your slaves. You will not kill Tomas." Roderic raised an eyebrow. "And how do you intend to stop me?" "With your mercy. Your prayers." Elian looked at him with pity. "No. I will show you what you are." Then he lunged, not at Roderic, but toward the largest fragment of the shattered crystal. He pried it free. The edge cut his hand. Blood ran across the stone. "Stop!" Roderic cried, for the first time with fear. But Elian did not stop. He pressed his bleeding hand onto the crystal and closed his eyes. "I believe with my heart," he whispered. "This place was not made only for beauty. It was made for truth. The truth is that you, Roderic, are still the young man who searched caves for silver. But you smothered him." Roderic's face fluttered. "Shut up!" he snapped. A faint silver light began to emanate from Elian's body, the light of the statue. The light passed into the crystal, and the fragment began to glow. Then every other piece of the broken crystal began to shine. The ruined city filled with silver light. "No!" Roderic screamed, making a motion to weave a spell. I moved then. I threw myself at him. It was neither bravery nor heroism, only raw, furious action. I knocked him down. His eyes widened with surprise and hatred. He shoved me off, but that moment was enough. Elian's light burst forth, not a destructive blast, but a calm, encompassing sea of light. It engulfed Roderic. He did not scream. He simply looked into the light, and the cruelty in his eyes melted away, replaced by profound astonishment and sorrow, as if seeing himself for the first time. The light faded. Elian collapsed. I rushed to his side. He was pale, but smiling. "Do you see, Godrik?" he said in a faint voice. "The heart is always the most potent magic." Then he closed his eyes. Roderic knelt where he was, staring at his hands as though seeing them for the first time. The stony mask on his face had gone. He cried, silently, a deep, raw grief. I cradled Elian. His body was still warm. I knew he was gone. Yet his sacrifice was not in vain. The light he gave began to restore the city. Lysander and his men retreated soundlessly into the darkness. Tomas wept at Elian's side. I felt only a vast emptiness. Elian was gone. Roderic was defeated. This did not feel like victory. It felt like a great loss. Then the fragment of crystal in Elian's hand glowed anew, this time with golden light. It rose and gently descended onto his chest, as if slipping into his heart. A warm golden glow emanated from him. Where it touched the ground, green grasses and little flowers sprouted. The ruined city revived, but not as a grand, miraculous metropolis. It rose as a humble, natural beauty, renewed by life. Elian had given us a final gift. He had not merely died. He had become part of this place. His heart had become the heart of the land. Roderic rose. He looked at me, his eyes red and swollen. He said nothing. He turned and walked into the ruins and faded away. I knew I would not meet him again. His war was over. And mine? My trial was over too. I had learned that true strength does not lie in sword or sorcery, but in choice. I had made the right choice for myself. I laid Elian's body gently in the sacred patch of new green. I took Tomas by the shoulder. "Come," I said. "Let's go home." But where was home now? The village seemed distant. Perhaps home was no longer a place. Maybe, as Elian had taught me, home was inside our hearts. We returned to our place, but this time I led. I was Godrik. The final chapter of our story approached. The road home was more exhausting than the way out, heavier now with the weight of the heart. With Tomas, I left the sacred spot where Elian had rested, now green and flowering. Behind us remained not the heavenly port, but Elian's garden. There could be no more fitting name. Months later, we reached the stone house at the corner of King Edmund's village. The village looked the same, but we were different. I was no longer the man who wandered in shadows seeking himself. I could face the sun. Villagers gathered around. The poverty was still visible in their faces, but this time they carried not despair, but resilience. We told our tale: Roderic's cruelty, Lysander's greed, Elian's heroism, and finally, the true power of the heart. Tomas stayed in the village. He apprenticed as a blacksmith, and laughter returned to his face. I chose to continue Elian's path. I took his notes, that stained notebook, and finished the work he had started, restoring the land around the village and teaching people to help one another. One day, while repairing the old arched bridge over the stream that runs by the village, Tomas and a few youths helped me. The sun set and cast golden light across the water. Then a lone traveler appeared on the road. He was an old man, weathered by the sun, but with eyes calm and wise. He approached and looked at us. "You are Godrik," he said. Not a question, but a statement. "I am," I replied, setting down my tool. "My name is Elian," he said. "I am an observer." "I have followed your journey." Tomas and the others fell back cautiously. I felt no threat. "What do you know of Roderic?" I asked, bluntly. Elian nodded. He spent the rest of his life in a monastery in the mountains, trying to understand the darkness within himself. "He is no longer dangerous. He is only sorrowful." A knot in my chest loosened. Elian's death had not been for nothing. It had cracked the stone in Roderic's heart. "And you, Godrik," Elian said. "You have found your treasure." It wasn't a city in the sky, was it? I looked at the repaired bridge, the village, and Tomas's hopeful face. "No," I said with a smile. "It was here. It always was. I just had to learn to see it." Elian smiled. He reached into his bag and handed me a small, smooth stone. It felt warm, and within it, tiny golden sparks glimmered. It seemed plucked from Elian's own garden. "For remembrance," Elian said. He turned and walked toward the setting sun and faded from our view. That night the village celebrated. Poverty had not vanished, but hopelessness had. People laughed, sang, and helped each other. I stood at the edge and watched, feeling a peace in my heart, what Elian had wished for. I held the stone Elian had given me. It glowed quietly, growing brighter with every change in my heart. The secret of our story is this: the true treasure is never the most distant or the most hidden thing. It is in the choices we make. Every time we share a loaf of bread, every act of mercy, every brave deed. Money can ease life, but it cannot give it meaning. Meaning comes only from love, compassion, and honest courage. Roderic searched for power and lost it. Lysander sought wealth and destroyed it. I searched for myself and found it by serving others. Thus, 3 hearts, 1 path ends. Yet its echo continues in the hearts of all who hear these words. Remember, whatever road you choose, seek the richness of your heart. It is the only treasure that can neither be stolen nor lost. It will always remain with you. My name is Godrik. That was my story. I hope you hear your own.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and turn on notifications. Your feedback on the topic in the comments will be a source of inspiration for us. Stay tuned.